Moors are men upright, independent, fearless, who care for the loved ones of the prophet to a destiny which is not uncertain or unknown. They are fortified by the impregnable doctrine built upon love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. They build their folly at its greatest height, smelling culprits within cities, planned around. As the Moors increase in America, all of the Moors are active, not passive. Members in one direction and have traveled over the road before. The prophet knows where every member is on the road. Few feet below the road where schemers work, the traders grin and culprits bask in the sun. They take me on the same road with true Moors. The Moors are high above on a pinnacle where they might view the destruction as they fall for the last time when their bones bleach in the sultry midday sun. Hungry scavengers flying high, can't stand the violence, and so cast out the dead carcass. The Moors high above see slaughter to raise the worst that exist, hurling themselves downwards by their own works as the obsolete. So we proclaim to every meeting. I'm glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and that I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There's also jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claim that I was only a joke and unreal, but now since they found out from the government officials and the nation of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they work in every scheme that they can to disqualify me so that they may take charge of the situation. That they may take charge of the situation now, because you distracted me.
I said slow down.
You distracted me. I've notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is to the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds the one that paid their divine respect to me, and the movement will be remembered. That is why I'm calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and the divine Moors movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as to do our presence of discord and displacing the nation, and it all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without either prophet being head. It has been proven by my works that have performed in the past 2 years. Prophet Noble Drug League.
The door was open. Peace.
Was it?
How you doing? Yeah.
The members of the Moor Science Temple of America. This is the instruction from your prophet, Noble Ali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine national creed, that you bless for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is on now, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, Noble Ali. That's why many hearts have been turned to stone. They have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they will be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they're trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophets and ridicule him to the very lowest, the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet of the godly. Prophet warns all Muslims to be read in every meeting. I hereby inform all members that you must end all radical speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets, or for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing across the Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember your parts for your salvation. Failing to obey these orders will be severe consequence. We're for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and once these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their cardinal vote. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet. No one will believe if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet therefore is saying that the divine to all Moorish men that they do their part of protecting the prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from the sinful ways. Peace to my prophet, Noble Ali. Now, round of more questions. Number 1. What is your nationality? The answer is Moorish American. Number 2. Who is your prophet? The answer is Noble Ali. Number 3. What is the name of your country? The answer is Morocco. Number 4. Where is Morocco? The answer is North America. Number 5. Are you a citizen of the United States? The answer is no. The United States is a European corporation. See Title 18 of the United States Code, subsection 3002, number 15A. Number 6. Are you a citizen? The answer is yes. I'm a citizen of Morocco. Number 7. Why are you not a citizen of the United States? The answer is because the political body known as the United States is a federal compact of European colonies, and I am Aboriginal and indigenous to America. My people were here prior to European colonization. Number 8. Is the 14th Amendment constitutional? The answer is no. The 14th Amendment was never ratified. See the proceedings and debates of the 90th Congress, first session, volume 113, part 12 of June 12, 1967. Congressional records, page 15641, and others. Number 9. What territory are you in right now? The answer is this territory is Narragansett, but the Europeans call it Rhode Island, which it is not. Rhode Island is the name of their colonial corporation. Number 10, what is a corporation? The answer is corporation is the body in action. Number 11, what is the Bill of Rights? The Bill of Rights is part of the Constitution for the United States and protects the rights of all nationals, including most Americans. Number 12, what United States code states that the debts of the Federal Reserve note belongs to the United States? The answer is Title 12, subsection 411. Number 13, is mortgage ownership of property? The answer is no, it is not. The only way to own property is to have the allodial title. Number 14, where is the allodial title derived from? The answer is the national zone land. Number 15, is the IRS part of the United States government? The answer is no, it is not. C, the Diversified Metal Products Incorporated versus T-Bow Company Trust, Internal Revenue Service, and Steve Morgan in the United States District Court for the District of Ohio, civil number 93-405-E as in Echo, -E as in Echo, J as in Juliet, L as in Lima, United States answer and claim submitted November 18, 1993 by United States Attorney Betty R. Ward and House Resolution 25 of the 116th Congress, first session of January 3rd, 2019. Number 16, is the Rise of the Moors organization part of the Moorish Science Temple of America?
No.
The answer is no. Rise of the Moors is a nonprofit civic organization formed under the Moorish Divine and National Movement under the leadership of myself. The organization follows the laws as laid down by the Prophet and establishes its own laws in accordance with the national principles as taught by the Prophet. Number 17, is the Moorish Science Temple of America or Rise of the Moors interested in overthrowing the United States? The answer is no. Moorish Americans are not interested in overthrowing any political organization or government. It is the interest of all Moors to rightfully establish their own national government in accordance with the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights and Rights of Indigenous People. Number 18, are you above the law? The answer is no. Moorish Americans are not above nature's law. We are law abiders and live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, with strict adherence to the treaty that we have with the colonial United States and our nation of 1787, as well as the Constitution for the United States of America of 1791. Number 19, what is the reason for these questions? The answer is so that we are clear on which rights apply to us and so that there's no confusion as to what we stand for and what our intentions are. Number 20, what are our intentions? The answer is to live freely, exercise our rights to the pursuit of happiness, and free our people from mental slavery by honoring Act 6 of the Divine Constitution and bylaws, teach our people about their nationality and divine creed, with the aim of establishing a functioning, free Moorish national government with a flourishing economy, by establishing Moorish-owned businesses in allodium, establishing Moorish universities, Moorish grocery stores, restaurants, child care facilities, farms, factories, and import and export companies owned outright by Moors and the like. Number 21, do we hate Europeans? The answer is no, we do not. We love everyone, but we will not allow our rights to be molested or violated by any nation or quasi-nation of people. And we're done. That's over.
Great.
Alright. So today's topic was kind of formed around the first question, what is international court? And because Moors think that international court is a place that you go to. Which that is wrong, and the reason why that's wrong is because we have to break down the word international, right? So in order to know what international court is and what international law is, we have to understand what the word international means, right? The word international means amongst nations, right? So what does that tell you? What does that mean to you?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I was writing
The
something.
word international court means amongst nations.
Mhm.
The word international means amongst nations. So when you hear the word or phrase international court, what does that mean to you?
You want to answer?
Anyone?
But you have to be a nation, or recognized as a nation.
One, that you have to be a nation or recognized as a nation. Anything else?
Multiple nations coming together to
Multiple nations coming together
handle their
to
affairs.
talk, right? Litigate issues. Good.
As I said, from grammatically, with the whole thing coming down that I'm looking at the word, I seen two nouns together.
The word amongst
in between, it have to be a place. So it's a noun. Enter.
Well, no, it's
Enter.
not a noun.
So what is it?
Well, what is amongst? Let's look at the dictionary. We don't have dictionaries in here. Hold on.
Cause we have to know what it, where they came from, and
Maybe it's an adverb. It's amongst.
amongst is the adverb.
Preposition amongst the people.
So the reason why I say amongst is not a noun is because a noun is a person, place, or thing, which of this compound word, the person, place, or thing is the nationals.
That's a noun.
Yeah, this is a noun, the word national. All right, so now let's look up what amongst means. Check that one. I'll check this one.
The adverb or preposition.
Or preposition, excuse me. But since I don't know off the top of my head, I'm gonna double check. Among, it is a preposition. Which is a connector. So, again, when you see the phrase international court, what comes to mind?
A non-profit organization to be able to bring nations together.
Okay, I'll accept that. When I hear international court, I think the place where representatives of two separate nations come together and litigate, discuss, and or talk about their issues. Right? It's something that two parties do. This is why I wrote here. When we go to court, to federal court, Moors, it becomes international court. Do you understand that? Why? Because we're a separate nation of people, and they're a separate quasi-nation of people. So as soon as we step in that building, if we're competent, it becomes international court. Why? Because we're discussing international law. But what is international law? Our international law is the treaty with the Moors and the United States. Because if international means amongst nations, right, and the treaties what we agree to, that's the law between our two nations, then that's the international law that we're litigating. Which, although people will confuse, they'll confuse this with this. They'll confuse this with that.
Stand. Can't really see. Oh, okay.
They'll confuse this with this. Well, excuse me, they'll confuse this with that. And then they'll confuse whatever this corporation agrees to as international law. Although it does not supersede any treaties that any other nations have with each other. Because when you talk about international law and an agreement between two nations, that is technically a private contract between those two separate nations. So since all men are independent of all laws and not prescribed, all men are independent of all laws, except those prescribed by nature, he's not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow men without his consent. Any agreement that these people have, it doesn't apply to any other nation unless they agree. Right? Subsequently, whatever these people agree to, it doesn't affect the individual treaties that other nations have amongst each other. You get it? It's not It's not complicated at all whatsoever in any form, shape, or fashion. Any questions so far? Great.
No.
So since Moors do not have an executive branch of government, because various reasons, one, we're the foreign occupation, and our people who've been branded Negro, blacks, and colors go to European-owned and operated schools, whether it be chartered, private, black organization schools. Those are still European-owned. That's why they get permission from Europeans to have their black university. Or any so-called Indian school, which that's also European-owned because they get permission from the Europeans to establish said school. And we're miseducated in their schools. So all of our energy gets put towards the United States and its industry, commerce, agriculture, business, everything, instead of focusing on ours, meaning Moors or Moorish-owned businesses, universities, grocery stores, treasuries,
Can you give us?
hospitals.
Can you give a sample of like school system how they're not willing to teach our children the right way? Like,
Okay, here's an example. In school, I was taught I was black. I'm not a crayon. I had to find out from a Moor that I actually have a nationality. So that's proof right there.
boom.
You know, they also teach us that George Washington was the first president, and he wasn't, because there was the first Continental
He was the
Congress
9th.
and the second Continental Congress before him. He's the first president under the Constitution. That's what he is. Well, excuse me, because the Articles of Confederation and the Articles of Association are also constitutions, but he was a president under the Constitution of 1791. Get it? Because Article 6 of the Constitution of 1791 includes the Articles of Confederation and the Articles of Association by saying all debts and contracts entered into before the adoption of the United States shall be valid against the United States as under the Confederation. So before the United States was known as the United States, it was known as the Confederation. Confederation of what? In the European colonies. So just because they changed their name, does that mean they changed what they are? No. So our people are directing all of our energy to them, getting their passports, getting their IDs, paying their taxes. And since that's happening, we're not able to pay our own Moors to be in office.
Can you give a sample of a lot of individuals like this going into their jurisdiction
Okay,
trying
here's an
to
example.
claim?
Here's an example. We have nationality cards, right?
Mhm.
I've also been telling Moors here, that come to this class, that we don't need a driver's license from the state of Rhode Island,
Commerce.
right? But they'll still go to the post office to get a passport for either as a second form of ID or to travel, right? In doing so, you're not only paying the United States, but you're giving validity to their documents, which you already know
And you're keeping the
they're
system
not valid,
going.
which exactly keeps them going. Because one, excuse me, they can state that, well, we have to provide this service because people want it. And two, you're paying them with your fiat, although it's not really paid,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're giving them your energy. Another example is, and again, this is not against anyone personal, this is just what I see, I'm trying to be as objective as possible. When I said that we don't need a driver's license from the state of Rhode Island, that's not my opinion, that's Rhode Island general laws. Moors would still go to some other party to get a permit or something from them, instead of enforcing our right that we don't need one. Because what Moors are seeing is these Europeans are violating us, so they want an easy, fast remedy, which that's not how nature works.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I wanted strawberries one year, I had to wait until they were in season and my strawberries made them. You know, and I refused to go buy anyone else's because I wanted mine. That's how we're supposed to be. And if you look at the Articles of Association, that's what the Europeans agreed to. They're not going to do business with anyone except for themselves, which that established themselves financially because they were so prejudiced that we're only going to do business with each other, that's how their economy grew.
It's called group economics.
Yeah, group economics, yeah. But our so-called black people talk about stuff like that, but they don't talk about it as pertains to us as a nation. They'll just say things like the black dollar, which our prophet said, until you have a treasury to maintain a grand treasurer until that day, he'll be nothing. Because we're still, when our people talk about the black dollar, they're talking about an instrument that's not even a dollar, it's a promissory note printed by the U.S. Treasury Department for the Federal Reserve Bank, which is a private-owned bank, which keeps them economically in control over our people. So if they're if they're continuously in economic control of our people, and the economics represents our energy, then they will always control us. You get it? So even when we talk about group economics and the so-called black dollar, you have to talk about our own national treasury. Because that's what grants us freedom, literally. Because we set the fair market value of things. That's what fair market value is. It's what the people put on it. The people put value on things. That's fair market value. So if I have this Sharpie or Expo marker and she has it, and I say mine's $2, and she says hers is $5, who are you gonna go to? Me. So now I'm controlling the market. But what the Europeans have done, they made a small group of people control of the market. And we just agree with that. That's why they call us chattel. Because wherever you tell a cow to go, cattle, what's the difference? They're gonna do it. They're gonna go. If it's feeding time, they're gonna go. If it's time to get slaughtered, they're gonna go. It doesn't matter what it is. All right, so that's what the Europeans do. They dangle anything in front of us, and we just, oh, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. You understand what I'm saying?
We also control the manufacturing.
Yeah, which if you doubt whether what I said is true about marketing and how the market should control the people, how the people with the market should control the value of things, read House Resolution 5404, Congress admitted that. You just have to comprehend that when they say the value of things should be handed to the market and not the government, they're speaking allegorically, whereas the market means the people, and although the government is supposed to also mean the people, when they say government, they're talking about their cabal, which is a secret group of people who is in control of things, or the mob, which democracy is the mob and the ruling class. And we've seen this movie on Netflix, right? What's it called? With Robert De Niro?
The Irishman.
The Irishman. In that movie, they show you that the mob, literally the mob, is putting people in office, taking them out of office.
Like in the White House.
Yeah, in the White House. So, they tell us the truth in movies. So since all of these things and more are in effect, more is being so distracted by the problem and not necessarily realizing that, the remedies is sometimes in the long run. We haven't been able to, there hasn't been a call for a Moorish National Constitutional Convention to fully establish the executive and legislative branch of the Moorish nation. Right now, there are several Moorish American consulates where Moors are trying, but trying to be as objective as possible. There's just a lack of competency within a lot of Moors, if that makes sense. Because I'm not trying to attack any person or any group. That's just what it is.
They want you to they don't want you to overstand. And a lot of people in government, they like to hide information so for you to but not to overstand. A lot of people don't teach you the way for you to be able to be the person who you want to be. You know what I'm saying, Mo? I think it's diversity coming. A lot of things come in threes.
Yeah.
There's a person making a statement and a person asking because he already know the answer, and a person questioning, they don't know the answer to be able to let the other individual to be able to make an overstand or understand. And a lot of people, they like when they feel that when somebody make them understand, they're overstanding stuff, and there's a lack of communication or lack of competence. And a lot of people have to do self-education to teach themselves a lot better,
So, part of the reason why I've been telling Moors to file tort claims since last year when I was part of the consulate is that in law, the accuser bears the burden of proof, right? So if we're going to continue to state that the United States European colonial government refuses to honor the treaty. And whatever situation it is, we have to prove that, right?
Mhm.
So what's the best way to prove that? In my opinion, is
United
with
States.
court dockets
Case law.
from the United States showing where Moors have competently filed things on the record, right? Clearly made a claim upon which relief may be granted, and the United States still refuses. I'm talking about the federal government, not some state, nothing. I'm talking about the federal government still refuses to recognize it.
Mhm.
Now that's just the judicial branch,
That's one.
but still, based on all the Moors that we've been helping, how many cases you see Moors with the federal court?
Open?
Just in general, open, closed, it don't matter.
At least 20.
20.
At least.
Now that's just Moors that we've been helping. Now imagine how many Moors who've been filing claims individually and they're not getting any remedy. Let's just say it's about 20. So now we have at least 40 Moors who hopefully kept their dockets and can prove on paper that the United States refuses to bring justice in accordance with the treaty.
Mhm.
Because in this situation, we'd be the plaintiff, they'd be the defendant, and we'd be in consular court, which once there's consular presence, that becomes consular court, Article 3 court, international court, because of the status, the competence of all the human beings in that room.
Mhm.
They'd be the defendant, trial by jury, but in most situations, it's not a trial by jury. And if it is, there are no Moorish nationals up there because it's not fair. So there'll be a European magistrate up there. That European, being a U.S. citizen, has jurisdiction over their people, right? And in a trial by jury, it would be 6 Moors and 6 U.S. citizens.
Mhm.
You know, even to make sure that it's impartial, right? And then they litigate. If it was the other way around, it would be Moors having jurisdiction over us and 6 U.S. citizens on the jury. So it would be impartial because U.S. citizens have jurisdiction over their U.S. stuff, Moors have jurisdiction over their Moorish stuff, and they're deciding whether or not the treaty has been violated.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying? So that's literally the jurisdiction. Because Moors think by you going to federal court, and just because there's a pale-skinned person up there, or even a dark-skinned person who's part of the U.S., for some reason they think that you being there grants them personal jurisdiction. It doesn't.
Mhm.
Because the subject is the treaty. You're a party to that treaty. Get it? So, since, despite what most Moors are saying, and I comprehend the honest attempt of Moors to establish a judicial branch, but if we merely and not what we see, then we're basically going to be stuck in the same position that we're in. You get it? Now the reason I say this is because some Moors may have good intentions, but for lack of a better word, they're delusional. Right? Now, I don't want to say, all right, let me say this. This is my book, right? This is my Black Soul Dictionary. It literally has my seal on it. My family seal is that big for it. This is mine. If you send me, if I don't owe you nothing, right? And you send me something in the mail, certified mail, where you claim this based on whatever, and I sign it saying that I got the mail, does that mean you own it now? Why not?
Because it's yours.
Because it don't make sense, right? So Moors would do certain things, Moors would do things like that, and then claim ownership of something. You understand what I'm saying? You get what I'm trying to say? Because this is a specific
Why don't you
situation.
talk about that? Because it's
Because
important.
because I've been saying things against these people for a long time.
Sure.
And Moors think that I'm against. Speak open.
Yeah.
Because Moors already know I'm open anyway. The Moorish American Consulate.
Mhm.
And again, I don't know how many times I have to say it. I'm not against the consulate. For some reason, people consulate. The consulate is an idea. I'm not against that idea. I'm against certain people in the consulate making incompetent decisions. Now, I've said this
Or-
privately to a lot of the Moors
Making
in the
incompetent
consulate.
statements.
But since I left the consulate, there have been members, part of the consulate, consistently contacting me to explain things, for help. I'm actually helping a Moor who's part of the consulate. I'm actually helping a few Moors who's part of the consulate in federal court, which blows my mind because that's what their job is as viziers. So what are you coming to me for? But anyway, so that's proof that I'm not against the consulate. I've been helping them since I left. But my point is, people keep saying I'm against them. I'm not against them. Me helping them is proof that I'm not against them. What I'm against is certain people within the consulate making incompetent decisions and selling our people dreams with no proof, no tangible, practical application or proof whatsoever. My problem with certain individuals as well is that there are people within the consulate who have shared the same opinions that I've been expressing to the people, but they haven't said anything. They'll only say it to me. And since I'm the only one vocalizing it, people within the consulate get to throw their stones at me. When I'm not the only one with this opinion. Because it's not really an opinion, it's a fact. You understand what I'm saying? And there's been people who were part of the consulate who left the consulate. They didn't do it publicly, but they left because of the same reasons why I left. You understand what I'm saying? So they're not against the consulate, they're against what I see from when I was in the consulate, from when I left the consulate, and from what I'm hearing being formed within the consulate. You understand what I'm saying? Where certain people they're basically making, so again, my point is, I'm not against the consulate, the idea of it, the necessity of it. I'm against certain individuals who are incompetent, making incompetent decisions, and no one is publicly correcting them, because when they do get publicly corrected, stones get cast at those people correcting them because of their oligarchy that they've established within the consulate. So I say that to say this. Like Tajiri Bey made a claim that the consulate now owns the IRS or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Who owns the IRS?
The consulate.
Well, that's what they're claiming, that now they own the IRS.
Because she sent them a letter and they signed the green certified mail receipt, and that's proof that they own it somehow. Now, that is a plain, blatant example of incompetence.
Mhm.
Because one, the IRS isn't even part of the government, so why would you want to own that? Two, the commissioner of the IRS, this video is public, stated that taxes are voluntary. So even if you did own the IRS, it's still voluntary taxes, so you can't force anything. Additionally, the same person, like Jerry Bey, also stated that the 666 trillion dolarium within the Moorish treasury. So there's already 66 trillion dolarium within the Moorish treasury. That means people are already paying taxes, so what do you claim the IRS for? So my point is, these are blatant and obvious acts of incompetence. You understand what I'm saying?
Let me ask you this.
Is it-
What's it?
One person at a time.
Go first.
My question is it incompetence or is it lying? Because
So now, since I don't know what's in her head, I only know what makes sense. To me, it's incompetence.
and
Me.
especially because if you were to have 666 trillion dolarium
We're
or
gonna need anything.
the IRS revenue, why don't we have a building for the consulate? Why don't Moors have our own government established? Why aren't we making faster moves now that we have all of this?
So, all right, you're bringing up good points, but I don't want to make this a bashing.
No, yeah,
I
no,
know,
yeah.
I know. But let me
Yeah,
let me make it clear. What about the 16th Amendment? And everybody,
It's not constitutional.
I know it's not constitutional, but you could be able to read based on that.
Well,
that
if you read House Resolution 16,
Mhm.
the United States already talked about repealing the 16th Amendment. And then if you read, because it's not constitutional in the first instance. Then if you read House Resolution 25, they're talking about dissolving the IRS. So Light is claiming that the Moors now own the IRS, but then the United States is talking about dissolving it because it's unconstitutional, it's unfair, it's inequitable, it's destroying families, it's destroying jobs. House Resolution 25, Fair Tax Act of 2019. So now when you know things like that, and you see what someone like her is doing, It's not my opinion that she's incompetent, that's proof that she's incompetent. And the problem with the consulate is that no one is openly challenging her.
Heard them.
Now, it's not. So, remember when the prophet said, if the prophet's not right, the temple's not right?
Mm-hmm.
Any head of any organization, if they're not right, which she's not even the head of it, she's de facto head because no one's challenging her.
De facto.
If any head of any organization is not right, then the organization itself is not right.
Yes,
So again, just to be clear, I'm not against the consulate.
we need one.
We absolutely do need one. It's people who are making incompetent decisions at the top and not being challenged. That is my problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because why is it that we have 20 more that we're helping with federal lawsuits that we can use as proof to the UN, this UN, not that one, this one, that Europeans are violating us? That's the consulate's job. That's on every consul's commission papers, said at enumerated paragraph number 3, their job, their duty is to help get Moore's remedy in federal court, right? So now, I brought this to the attention of the consulate when I was part of the consulate. The United Nations has within their charter that if an issue is recommended to the United Nations Security Council from a nation who's not part of the United Nations, with proof that either one party refuses to bring justice or the other party is incapable of bringing justice, the United Nations Security Council will recommend said case with a type of special jurisdiction to the World Court to help that issue get litigated. Now, that's my goal by telling Morris to file tort claims. Why isn't the consulate doing this? So again, I don't want to make this against them, but that's what they're supposed to be doing according to their commission papers. You understand what I'm saying? But so the problem is when you read where the prophet said I need finance and I need it badly, so I guess shove aside the discord that's facing the nation. There are a lot of Moors rightfully associating themselves with the consulate, rightfully. But the finances that the consulate is acquiring isn't being, whereas someone like me in our organization what we're doing for Moors, that type of finance would expeditiously, propel us forward. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
Because since we lack that type of funding, which trust me, I know what type of funding these people are getting, we're not able to hire Moors to actually help with these legal cases, so then we can go to the UN with all this proof, get it sent to the UN Security Council, and be heard at the UN. You get what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
Which is exactly what El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz was trying to do, also known as Malcolm X, who's going to bring the United States to the UN for human rights violations,
Mm-hmm.
which Taj Bey has talked about before. So, if the Co-Consul General has said that before, why isn't that the mission of the actual consulate? It just doesn't make sense. But any questions on this? Because I keep
I'm
saying
hoping
I
y'all
wanna
can
make
see the
this a
stream.
consulate bashing video, but
Please
it's
comment
kinda-
if you're hearing us.
You understand what I'm trying to say? Because the reason why I bring it up is because it's our duty as the people to correct those in office. Whether you want them in office or not, you still have to correct them. Right? Because right now, this is not just with the consulate. There are multiple consulates, but this is also with the Moorish Science Temple of America and any other Moorish organization claiming to be government, whether it be USAR or whatever the heck it is. The reason why these people still exist is because no one is challenging them.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, if there was an actual Moorish executive branch, the executive branch will be charged with checking the judicial branch. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Are we sure? Because this is very simple to me. I'm not sure if I'm going over
No,
my
it is
head.
simple.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so back to the same situation about the signature and this lady sending something to the IRS. So that shouldn't be in the first place. If she's from the consulate, It's supposed to be the whole court of body of individuals checking this information before she'd even send this.
So,
Like, I don't know
this
why
is-
she's
this
just
is
doing
where-
this stuff by herself.
This is where I said, she's claiming a de facto position. It's always been that way.
She needs to be taken away.
So this is an email, I wrote this email yesterday, right?
A couple of days ago, 2 or 3 days ago.
But someone from the consulate questioned whether she was able to speak for the entire judiciary or not. I responded that when I wrote the trust for the consulate, it's the co-consul general's job to speak for the entire body. So since there is no co-consul general, she's assuming that position. You understand what I'm saying? By doing so,
And no one's challenging it.
and no one's challenging it. But I was told that the majority of the people in the consulate voted for me to be in that position. Now, I'm not accepting or denying, and if I do accept it, it will be under certain terms. But since then, Light has been questioning my nationality, and she's also been sharing, which is fine, the notice of termination video that I did that I made public. She claims to be making it public again because she wants to put into the people's mind that I'm not for the consulate. But the reason why she's able to do things like that is because there's a lot of new people coming in. And the reason why I know this is because I speak to Viziers. They call me a lot. That's her. She's like, oh, is that so-and-so from the consulate? Yep. I can show you text messages. You know what I'm saying? So I do have inside information that I know a lot of our people don't know about that would paint a proper picture on what's happening within the consulate. I'm trying to do it as objective as possible. It's just, the issue is, there are some people with personal vendettas against me, so it seems like I also have a personal vendetta against them when I actually don't. Because when it comes to the establishment of the consulate, I literally wrote the trust. I literally wrote it. It was literally my idea to do the state of the state. It was literally my idea to put all the governors on notice. I actually wrote that notice, and then they sent it to Taj, and he added like a little bit to it. I literally wrote the entire thing. So no one can say that I'm against it, because from its foundation, I've been literally a core part of it. But that she's trying to use that video to discredit me, although I'm the one who
Made the video and made it public, but putting it out now is making it seem like you're saying, no, I don't want anything to do with the consulate, and
Yeah,
this is my termination.
that's the point.
Yeah,
That's-
but that was from,
Do you want me to clear something out that is very important in my eyes and my shoes? Because I always say you always gotta be in somebody else's shoes to be able to understand it.
Yeah.
Me being outside of your shoes, I could be able to see the diversity of individuals trying to be jealous. And not only that, no jealousy, but a self-ego. You know, they have to kill that self-ego inside of you to be able to be genuine.
Yeah.
And an individual that don't understand or overstand situations, you shouldn't be feeling threatened. If a person who's coming at you with that type of bad energy and that type of like aggressive attitude to be able to use different situations, different scenarios to make you look bad, that means that person feels threatened for them to be able to, for you to take that position away. And to be honest, if I'm in the position of about to be the one representing and you the one to be the face, I will put you so. Why? Because you're the stronger piece on the chess. We're not playing checkers, we're playing chess. And we're staying. And a lot of people want you to be under them because they want to feel we're important because the self-ego. And that ego, they're not going to go nowhere.
Yeah.
And they need to put their ego down and then to be able to pursue for what we're getting forward. Because right now, this is restraining us, our energy, and all the way to the back. We're in the back burner right now because honestly, like if they put you in that position and they understand, because I know you from a long time and I see how genuine you are. You don't have that type of aggressive, you don't have jealousy towards nobody. You're always is for the people. I see it. I've been there for almost years now and I know that. And I seen this lady putting all these documents like you presenting to me that she's doing everything on herself and she's not even delegating this into the executive branch to the table of executives to be able to debate what was the decision into this bullet, because I'm calling it a bullet when it comes down to documents. You shouldn't be forwarding documents to anywhere like that.
just
on your own self.
more from the consulate have also told me that she's using other people's signatures without their permission.
Oh, she shouldn't be doing that. That's fraud.
So now, exactly, so if someone like that is in charge of something, an organization that's supposed to be doing this, right?
I don't
Everything we
want
spoke about at the beginning,
I don't want her there.
what does that mean for the destiny of our people?
That's incompetency.
We're gonna be let off a cliff.
Which is why the prophet said, if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right.
Mm-hmm.
If any head of any organization is not right, the organization itself is not right, and the destiny of said organization is going nowhere.
And I bet you got proof from all that too. I know you have.
Oh, yeah, dude.
You did you diligence and stuff like that. And I think we should have a trial.
So what you're talking about is correct, but that's why I keep saying we need a Moorish national constitutional convention. Because in said convention, we established all of this. Voting who's gonna be in what position, all the people would be in charge of that. Voting what the constitution of our nation is going to be, all the Moors will be part of that, so it's not just one individual or a few individuals claiming to be the government of our entire nation. Because if they are claiming that position, like, as an example, like Tajira Bey of the Moorish American Consulate is claiming that she has $666 trillion.
Where's she at? What is that at?
One, where's the treasury? Two, how do we get access to the funds of said treasury? Because we need to be out of this building, we need a better building. We need to extract some of that DeLorean to invest in our people's businesses so that our people don't have to work for Europeans no more. We have to use some of that treasury finance to create more security forces to protect our communities against the European colonial genocide and police terrorism. We need grants, not loans, grants to fund Moorish laundromats, Moorish hospitals, because we've been going to the hospital the last few days and it's not Europeans and not
Weeks.
it makes me uncomfortable.
If we have like at least 20 Moors in one location, put at least almost 2 to 3 different policies and forces from our nations to be able to protect us and to have some jobs into these areas for us
The
to.
treasury is for.
I know,
Treasury is
but
to invest in its own people.
she ain't doing that. I ain't seen
The
that.
more any government or whatever invests in its own people, the more flourishing that economy is going to be. That's how governments, civics, and society works. It's literally how it works. Whereas the people who own corporations to create them, so that way more people are paying taxes, which means the taxes go down, and the higher the quality of life goes up. Get it? It's not complicated. Which I talk about this in my fourth book.
And that's what we try to do. We try
I'm
to
sorry, what
compromise
book?
ourselves.
My fourth book.
Number 4. When is that gonna be
My fourth book's
released?
gonna be ready as soon as the person drawing this picture is done.
Oh, okay. Just wondering.
Keep wondering.
Mhm.
So I apologize for making this about the consulate, but that is a topic that all Moors should be aware of, I think.
And it's
Not
a
just about me personally.
it's a current
but
event, and
the
also
consulate itself should be known to Moors.
yeah, and to know that what the current events are and the stuff that you were involved in and how your name was thrown into that and how you had no idea
Yeah, I had no idea.
that
Actually,
he was voted in. No
I was
one
told that
contacted
the
him at
Moors
all.
Voted me in on one of my Wednesday calls. He said that a Moor was trying to contact me. I said I had no idea. I didn't even know that they were voting. I didn't know I was nominated. None of that stuff.
Mhm.
But he told me, so I texted a bunch of people from the consulate and asked if it was true. They said yes. And that the judiciary had to vote on it again, which to me, it didn't make sense.
You will know, never
Because
notified.
if the majority of the people already voted, why are you voting
Again.
again?
Mhm.
But I was told by Light that she didn't want the judiciary to influence the decisions of the people. So they're voting separately.
So that's the electoral college.
Well, that's the thing. So if their votes are just being added to the total, that sounds fine.
Mhm.
But if their vote is the end all be all, then now you're talking about an electoral college or a private kingship oligarchy where only your votes matter.
Mhm.
Which I posted a while back on Facebook, Pete the Coup, because I don't want to go into too many details. Any questions on that? Because there's certain things I won't say,
I know.
just because some people think that me being vocal about this, you know, that threatens the community and the Europeans can use it against us. No, our
Honestly,
incompetence is more detrimental to us than anything a European is doing.
I'm gonna say, honestly, right now, if it weren't for you, I probably wouldn't know half of the information that I know. And when Moors come to this class from, you know, just around the
Virginia.
country and just other temples and the information that the information that they know is usually not intentionally, but it's just false information. They're really confused about simple concepts, and it's really sad to see. It's just sad to see everyone so scattered, and the information is just so simple, and it's not being taught at this level. So honestly, I'm really, you'll know that I appreciate you very much, and I appreciate your honesty, and I think that it is good for you. And I know that a lot of times I try to calm you down from doing certain things because you get on fire and then you want to go all the way. But I definitely appreciate you standing up and saying something because no one else is doing it and no one else is challenging anyone. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
so again, I literally had a vision a while ago when I was part of the consulate about this very issue. And again, like I said before, there are Moors within the consulate today, like right now, today, who have the same view that I do about the consulate. They'll tell me in private, but won't say it in public.
mhm.
There's countless Moors who told me, I'll express this within the consulate, and I get ignored.
Mhm.
I'll say this in the consulate, and they give me a roundabout answer and never address the issue. I'll bring this up to the consulate, and it never gets addressed.
Mhm.
There are people today in the consulate with that will tell you, well, they tell me, I don't know if they're gonna tell you, but now it's emails I can show people, but for the sake of, you know, the integrity of what I see the consulate supposed to be, I'm not gonna show that to everyone. But I can call up a few people right now, and I don't know if they'll talk publicly, but in private, I can call them and you know, talk about it. So it's not just me.
Mhm.
So I have a duty as a human being, as a Moor, who honestly desires to see an actual Moorish government that's not delusional, not basing their decisions on what makes them look good and feel good, but basing their decisions on what actually works for the benefit of our people, not themselves. I desire to see a Moorish government that is built upon those principles. So since that's what I desire, I'm going to call out any and every Moor who's not in harmony with that.
Mhm.
What did the prophet say? In order to save this nation, I have to enforce law. And there's something called the court of public opinion. So if the public's informed about what the consulate is doing, and they're going to base their opinion of the consulate based on their opinion, not the facts associated with it. You understand what I'm saying? So if you look at me, but then someone comes in and tells you that I murdered 6 babies, your opinion's going to change based on those facts, right?
There's no facts.
But if you don't know those facts, then you're just going to view your opinion based on what I'm showing you, a false image of what I'm showing you. You understand what I'm saying?
That's a fiction.
So
It's not reality.
that's why I had to be vocal about any dirty Moors within the Moorish Science Temple of America claiming to be temple number 1 with a fake charter. Any Moors claiming to be a supreme whatever, judiciary or whatever who's incompetent. Any Moor, it doesn't matter to me. It's all the same. You understand what I'm saying? If you're wrong, you're wrong. There's no in between. And if you don't correct yourself upon you being placed on notice that you're wrong, then you're intentionally doing what you're doing. And you need to be exposed. So, any questions on this?
Let me check the chat just to make sure. My phone is gonna die. I just want to plug it in really quick. Any questions on international law
Yeah, any questions on international law?
or the subject
What international
matter?
law is, how it's enforced, who enforces it?
How we could go by it and the steps that we could be able to take to bring the United States into international.
So steps that we can take to bring the United States to international law, again, every time we step into federal court, that becomes international law.
Mhm.
Now, what I think you're talking about
Is
is
the
getting
UN.
the assistance of other nations. So, In order to do that, like I said, we have to file tort claims first to prove that the United States is refusing to help us administrate justice according to the treaty. Then we can seek help from, as an example, the United Nations Security Council, because then they can recommend our issue to the International Court of Justice. So that's literally the steps. Get approved first, so file your tort claims in federal court, get the response from the federal judges, although they're not judges, still get the proof, and then bring it to world court. Now, here's a prime example of other nations exposing what the United States is doing to their nation at the United Nations. So if anyone thinks I'm wrong, just look at what other nations are doing and listen to what your prophet said about taking our places amongst the affairs of men. So if other nations are doing this, why not us? So people can't argue, well, that's just Jamal's opinion. They have to argue against what heads of governments are doing. So this is a speech this is the English text of the Venezuelan Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, her speech at the United Nations General Assembly, September 27th, 2019. So is this old stuff? No, it's not. So what she talks about is exactly, or very similar to what our people are going through.
You said it was, what was the date on it again?
September 27th,
Oh, okay.
2019. She said, Distinguished General Assembly of the United Nations Organization, a very respectful greeting to the President of this Assembly, a greeting also to all heads of delegation who are in this hall sacred to international public law. I come in the name of the only Venezuela, the dignified Venezuela, the brave Venezuela, the one that does not kneel before any imperial power. So again, this is the Vice President of Venezuela saying this. I bring the greetings of President Nicolas Maduro Moros.
Maduro, yeah.
Last name Moros, which means what? More. And the Venezuelan people. It is a Bolivarian greeting, also in the name of the nationalized Venezuela. We come with the purpose of making known very good news about the Republic of Venezuela. The first is that Venezuela is at peace, and this was witnessed firsthand by the 120 delegates that recently participated in a summit of aligned countries in Venezuela, despite the war that powerful transnational media have unleashed to stigmatize Venezuela.
Propaganda.
Propaganda through the media, which the prophet said our press is our most powerful weapon. Right, so now you're talking about the court of public opinion. Right? Very much in spite of the coup d'etat attempted by extremist sectors of the Venezuelan opposition, have attempted to assassinate the entire high military of Venezuela. The authorities of the Venezuelan state, as well as accredited ambassadors in Venezuela. That is why I salute this space where we speak to each other. Those of us who do not have the power to access this surface of the world hegemony, ain't that what Taj talks about? And its satellites. Isn't that what Taj talks about? The world media says nothing about this system of social protection that exists in Venezuela, and that includes, without distinction, almost 19 million Venezuelans. This model of inclusion, justice, and social protection has been determined as an objective to be destroyed by the government of the United States of America. Get that? So the United States of America is trying to destabilize the Venezuelan government. So more saying we're citizens of the United States, is saying that we're party to this. You understand that, right? It is the real threat to its model of capitalist supremacy. It is the Bolivarian model intrinsically opposed to the Monroe Doctrine, which claims to assert that all of our America is a backyard of the United States. Also within the framework of the extraordinary social programs, we highlight Agenda 2030 as a joint commitment of this General Assembly and of the road to follow for this organization. In this house of the international community, common mechanisms of cooperation are also being stimulated in order to address the urgent need to preserve the environment impacted by the devastating capitalist model. We express our solidarity with the brotherly Caribbean people of the Bahamas, a recent victim of the ravages of climate change. And as an Amazon country, we raise our voice to reject the barbaric condemnification of our Amazon, led by Brazilian President Jair, I don't know how to say his last name. I don't speak Spanish. Excuse me. He has used his extremist ideology to attack nature's lung. We proclaim the rights of nature as an everlasting banner of the peoples. We also came to this organization to effectively address the urgent need to fight against poverty and inequality, where 26 people possess the same wealth as the 3.8 billion poorest people in the world. We agree with the Secretary General of this organization, Mr. Antonio, when he urges nations to come with concrete actions and not with ornate speeches. I also say not to come with falsehoods and speeches that lie to an entire General Assembly. The point, dear Secretary General, is precisely how to achieve these noble and laudable commitments as an international community structure. Unilateral, illegal, coercive measures by the U.S. against millions of people in the world. I would like to pause in particular to expose the unilateral and therefore illegal coercive measures that subjugate millions of people throughout the world. These measures constitute a use of force prohibited by the Charter of the United Nations and international public law, threatening peace and security and systematically violating human rights. They're talking about the United States. Between 2015 and 2019, the government of the United States has decreed more than 350 unilateral coercive measures against the Republic of Venezuela, which include illegal appropriation of all of our resources and assets abroad, total financial and commercial blockade, impairing our healthcare, education, and food supply, aimed principally at suffocating the Venezuelan economy and subjugating our people. So, Morris, are you a citizen of this?
No.
I want to share with this assembly horrendous information on the role unilateral coercive measures represent in the face of conventional wars. It is well known that the use of the armed forces of the U.S. military-industrial complex is an important business. The last 3 presidents of the United States have increased illegal bombing in violation of the Charter of the United Nations without authorization from the Security Council. In the period between 2001 and 2009, President Bush dropped 70,000 bombs, an average of 24 bombs per day. In the period from 2009 and 2017, headed by President Barack Obama, the United States dropped 100,000 bombs, a daily average of 34 bombs per day. In the recent period, presided over by Donald Trump, 44,096 bombs have been dropped, a record with 121 bombs per day. Bombs that cause suffering to entire populations, to the civilian population, without any kind of distinction between children or seniors. Nevertheless, there is a new type of terror, or state terrorism, that is imposed on a people that no longer uses bombs, but banks and insurance companies, all within reach of a keystroke in the digital age. Cryptocurrency, cryptocurrency, cryptocurrency.
Another fiat system?
Cryptocurrency. I'll read that again. Nevertheless, there is a new type of terror, or state terrorism, that is imposed on people that no longer uses bombs, but banks and insurance companies, all within reach of a keystroke in the digital era. So now you're talking about when no Charlie said, until you maintain a grand treasurer, until then you are nothing. These are measures imposed by the United States using the dominance of the dollar as the world's reserve currency. It is the Treasury Department, an economic pentagon, that militarizes international relations and punishes millions of innocent people by applying doctrines of regime change and shamelessly steals the resources of nations.
Mm-hmm.
So, Morris, are you a citizen of the United States? Keep claiming to be, and this is what you're agreeing to. But these types of measures affect not only Venezuela. The supremacist hatred of President Donald Trump has stretched his imperial claws against Sister Cuba's revolution, savagely intensifying the extension of these coercive measures, illegal sanctions. Perhaps more than 5 decades have not been enough for them to know that Cuba will never surrender. For them to know that Fidel's Cuba will never submit to any imperial design. I got goosebumps, I don't know about y'all. More than 5 decades resisting the economic blockade. What else is needed for them to become aware that this way will never defeat the revolution of the followers of Martí? A similar fate is also sought against our sister Nicaragua. In these 3 revolutions of this continent, of Martí, I don't know how to say this. Can you come over here, please?
Yeah.
I just don't want to butcher it.
Martí, Salinista, and Bolivarian.
There you go. All right, geopolitical objective that the Monroe Doctrine Project has set itself. So again, the Monroe Doctrine of 1822 was warning the United States that Europeans over in Europe were interested in the Republic of the United States and basically overthrowing the Moroccan Empire over here. So that's what they're talking about, right? Which I was introduced by to the Monroe Doctrine by the Honorable, illustrious Taj Bay. It is precisely this government that judges us by standards they do not even apply to themselves. It judges us while their 400 people possess more than 240 million, thus forming an oligarchy that controls the political life of the majority. A society where the political system is dominated by a plutocratic minority is not democracy. Well, that technically is democracy. Much less has the authority to impose its model on other nations. We ask the United States for less arrogance and more tolerance and coexistence with the free nations of the world. Hashtag free nations of the world. In this thread, I would like to highlight the special relationship that exists between the #1 cocaine producer in the world and the #1 consumer of this drug on the planet, and a kind of narcotic relationship that exists between Colombia and the United States. It is widely certified that Colombia produces 70% of all the cocaine consumed in the world, increasing its production last year by more than 30% and surpassing all its historical production. I remind the United States that it gave Plan Colombia more than $10 billion to combat the production of this surge. U.S. citizens must feel deeply, those who pay taxes, who are the vast majority, not the oligarchy, must feel the waste of their taxes and where they end up.
YouTube is censoring us.
YouTube is censoring us?
Yeah, because remember the last video we did, it came out blurry on the live, it looked fine. Now this video looks completely blurry.
Yeah, Moore's been texting me that it's blurry.
Yeah.
They said that they can hear me though.
So for the book transactions, there's a few people on here that said they've been waiting for books for a little while.
You touching a very touchy.
I put in my email.
So there were 2 books. Let me read this.
Yeah.
The books were already sent.
That's crazy.
We went thanks to Commander Hugo Chavez and President Nicolas Maduro.
Maduro.
We accompanied a country that accompanied the peace agreement, which received the blessing of this organization and of the world publicity machinery. Today, President Ivan, I don't know how to say his last name, in a single blow, staged a thunderous breach and assault on these agreements. The United Nations has verified that since the signing of the peace accords, the number of 123 ex-combatants, and has verified that in the last year, 739 people have been reported murdered, social leaders of our sister Colombia.
Wow.
Colombia is the country with the highest number of internally displaced persons amongst 8 million people. In Venezuela alone live almost 6 million Colombian brothers and sisters, but they will never say this in the media that serve the hegemonic world. 2 days ago, I want to stop here because 2 days ago, the president of Colombia came before this dignified General Assembly to lie about Venezuela, and he brought up guerrillas. We have reached such a level of disrespect that we have come to lie to this community. A slight examination, as you well know, because it has been a world scandal in all the media. A slight examination has shown that these photos that Mr. Ivan brought from Venezuela really corresponded to Colombian territory in the case of Cacao, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right,
Mm-hmm.
and in the case of I don't know how to say this.
The production of cacao.
There you go. His statement is contrary to any mechanism of mutual aid that we countries owe each other within the framework of conventions, police cooperation, and mutual justice. What is suitable is the diplomatic path. What is suitable is for countries to establish their respective means of communication within the framework of international legality. I'm going to ask President Duque, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, to take a pencil because he has forced us to bring to this General Assembly precise and concise coordinates of the existence of camps where terrorists are being trained to attack Venezuela. 3 sites in the northwest, Santa Maria,
I'm sorry, I can't keep this on me.
Rio Hacha, I'm not sure how to pronounce any of this stuff. But in Santa Maria, I provide the coordinates that will also be handed over to the Secretary General of this organization, 11 degrees, 14 minutes, 19 seconds to the north, 7 degrees, 6 minutes, 79 degrees, 6 minutes, 15 seconds west. Camp in Santa Maria, camp in Rio Hacha, coordinates, 11 degrees, 32 minutes, 3 seconds north, 75 degrees, 55 minutes, 14 seconds from the west. Camp in Mayacao, not sure if I'm saying that right. Coordinates 11 degrees, 22 minutes, 39 seconds north, 72 degrees, 13 minutes, 58 seconds west. We will also post photos of these camps where mercenaries are being trained to assault and attack Venezuela. Venezuela, for its part, has done its part restoring to international public law and has offered the evidence to the Colombian government. The Venezuelan Attorney General's office has also made available all the evidence regarding the presence of people involved in serious crimes against the constitutional order in Venezuela. Crimes of terrorism that attempted to assassinate authorities of the Venezuelan state and President Nicolas Maduro. The official response of the Colombian government has been to give refuge and shelter to these people, requested by the Venezuelan justice system in flagrant violation of Resolution 1373 of the United Nations Security Council. With his lies, we say it is a bad joke, but also President Duque is a bad liar. 24 hours had not passed and the truth was already coming to light. The truth of Venezuela is that Venezuela, with its vigorous rule of law, guarantees our territory untouchable. never lent its territory to be used to commit abuses or any crime to attack our brother country. I say this with absolute responsibility. The United States and its regional satellites are preparing from Colombia an aggression against Venezuela, endangering the security and stability of this continent. Any questions on that? Already in 2015, President Nicolas Maduro warned of what was coming when President Obama promulgated the infamous executive order that considers Venezuela a threat to its national security and foreign policy. This precedent would be the starting point of the most stubborn exercise carried out by the Organization of American States, of which Venezuela no longer forms part. By approving the obsolete International Treaty of Reciprocal Assistance, already establishing the framework to justify an armed intervention in Venezuela, led by the United States. They're going to report that all of the existing mechanisms in TIAR, all but one, armed intervention, has already been applied to Venezuela. And that is why we have come here to alert and prevent its potential conflict that they want to spread in our region. It is enough just to look at the history of the Organization of American States to know that this course of unilateralism by this group ended up turning into what is an unburied course. In the current international situation, our organization is called upon to play a more proactive role in addressing issues that have a direct impact on international peace and security. It emphasizes, and I would say it emphasizes in a dishonorable manner, the Palestinian question, to whose heroic people we have all been indebted for more than 50 years, and whose inalienable right to self-determination in their free, sovereign, and independent state with East Jerusalem as its capital has been denied. We also reject any form of commercial war against China, and we repudiate the unlawful sanctions against Russia, the multipolar and multi-center world, respectful of international law. We also reject sanctions against Iran, North Korea, Syria, and Zimbabwe. More than 32 countries have been targeted to apply these illegal and criminal sanctions. We salute the election of our brother Mexico to the presidency of CELAC, the inheritance of giants like Fidel Castro, like the commander of Hugo Chavez, who had the vision of rescuing our deepest roots of the great homeland, of the free homeland. We salute his presidency and repudiate any type of offense against the dignity of his people. We also ratify our historical rights over. Come over here and say this.
Mm-hmm.
We also ratify our historical rights over
Guyana Esquiva.
and we declare the Geneva Agreement of 1966 as the only valid instrument to settle this territorial controversy, which provides for bilateral political negotiation and whose legal instrument is duly deposited in the United Nations. In this great operation against Venezuela, which began with a coup d'etat in 2002 against President Hugo Chavez on the part of the United States, accompanied by the same actors who today are unfortunately trying to overthrow our legitimate government. On January 23rd, an unprecedented event in the world took place in Venezuela. A deputy who did not receive more than 90,000 votes in his preliminary election presented himself in a public square and proclaimed himself president of Venezuela. This deputy is an imperial device, meaning an agent of Rome. He does not exist politically in Venezuela. He exists as a device, as a criminal and delinquent instrument to attack the stability and peace of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. The self-proclamation was followed by acknowledgments from a minority of governments of our unequal world, perhaps one of the worst mistakes committed in the diplomatic history of these countries. Was plotting this illegal conspiracy, the legitimate government of President Nicolas Maduro received the support of almost 2/3 of the members of this organization grouped in the movement of non-aligned countries. Exactly 8 months have passed since the infamous and twisted accident in our Republican history, and the legitimate and constitutional government with effective territorial control and the institutional mechanisms of the rule of law continues and will continue to be President Nicolas Maduro, whom we Venezuelans are happy to give us within the framework of the sacred right to self-determination. And then it says applause. The majority of the world that supports Venezuela knows that this imperial ploy and invention is also a criminal organization. An even more serious fact has been the coordination between this artifice with a group of Colombian paramilitaries and the government of Ivan Duque. I take this opportunity to show the photo of this self-proclaimer with a leading member of the paramilitary organization Los Rastros. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. He actually had a picture of this guy.
Rastrojos. Wait, excuse me. Rastrojos. Yeah, you said it right.
Hey,
Rastrojos.
that's your Spanish. I show it to you that you know what we are facing. We're facing the use of criminal gangs, paramilitary organizations, and drug traffickers to destabilize Venezuela. History knows enough about this. Our sister Nicaragua knows well. When the United States government used Contras to overthrow Sandinissimo.
Good job.
It is well known by countries of the Middle East which have suffered terrorist organizations created, armed, and financed and used precisely to overthrow governments that are not the hegemon's satellite. So they're talking about the U.S. governments that won't submit willingly to the United States. So again, Moors claim to be citizens of this. This is what you're a party to. Just saying. In this regard, I would like to inform the international community that on Wednesday, our ambassador to the International Court delivered a video containing the full confession of a leader of the paramilitary band Los Rastros, delivered to supplement the preliminary examination on Cuba and paramilitarism. In order to achieve, guarantee, and preserve the peace and tranquility of the Republic, President Nicolas Maduro summoned all sectors of national life to a sovereign dialogue. Our commitment to the constitutional road is unwavering. We bring this history to alert the world and the international community to these perverse methods outside of legality, which tomorrow may, without any justification, reach other countries where the world's hegemony decides at all costs to change their forms of government and openly steal their country's assets. Venezuela is and will continue to be unique and indivisible. It is the Venezuela of Bolivar, our liberators, never surrendered to any empire. The government of the United States has accompanied this artificial construct with the vulgar and criminal application of a total blockade. In 2014, the United States has imposed 6,000 coercive measures on dozens of countries in the world. Today, in 2019, the number has increased to 8,000 unilateral and illicit coercive measures. They are the preferred weapon of non-colonial domination in the 21st century, less costly and more profitable. Today, 30 32 countries suffer the economic aggressions of the United States government. According to the United Nations Special Reporter on the impact of these measures, a third of humanity suffers the consequences of these collective punishments. A third of humanity. The movement of non-aligned countries justifiably approved yesterday a declaration firmly rejecting the application of these illegal sanctions. They are the new economic terrorism that uses the suffering of the innocent civilian population to achieve political benefits for the hegemony, and at the same time illegally obtains billions of dollars in this digital era with the touch of a keystroke. Bitcoin. Yeah, guys, you have a question?
I just want to know what hegemony is.
Hegemony is. Oh, look it up.
Yeah. Can you tell me how to spell it?
H-E-G-E.
Thank you.
Doesn't it mean togetherness?
Huh?
Doesn't it mean togetherness?
Togetherness? Well, listen to this. Listen to the dictionary. Jeez. So right now we're reading a speech from the Vice President of Venezuela, who basically was exposing the United States at the United Nations, saying that the U.S. is using banks as military weapons to destabilize countries like they're doing to us. They're stealing people's resources like they're doing to us. Basically everything that the Europeans are doing to us here in North America, they're doing it to everyone else. It's just the Vice President of Venezuela openly said it at the UN. Hegemony.
A hegemony is, this dictionary says it's a preponderant influence or authority, especially over one nation, especially of one nation over others.
So the kingship, oligarchy, imperialism, same. Hegemony, same.
They're trying to infringe upon the sovereignty of another.
Country,
Yeah.
another nation.
Yeah.
Great question. So again, they're destabilizing economies with a keystroke. That's why they're promoting all this Bitcoin, digital currency, because it's easier to log into a computer and delete all the billions of dollars that you thought you had in your bank account than to go to the bank and actually take the paper from the vaults and take the gold. It's harder to do that. So if you just hack into a mainframe, type in your little codes, you can just destabilize the country. That's why they're trying to get everyone into Bitcoin, because it's just easier to control people. Just like they block people, just like our Facebook is being censored on.
Oh yeah,
Facebook?
our Facebook is
They
blocked.
do that at the touch of a button. So imagine what they can do with banking. Imagine what they can do to countries, entire countries of humans, with this digital currency that they're basically forcing on people. And it kind of started with that, that little microchip that they start putting in your credit card. So where you had to put it in, you couldn't slide it anymore. They're trying to get people used. That's like the beginning stages of that. You understand what I'm saying? You don't swipe no more. You just insert this chip.
Tap.
Yeah, now it's tap. And now downtown, there's a store, a restaurant that doesn't even accept cash no more. You have to use a card. So
Using a watch.
you said people using a watch.
Yeah.
So you see how they're militarizing basically digital currency, and how another country is also saying that, Venezuela. So when you see this, invest in the crypto because it got the blockchain and it can't be controlled.
It's fiat one. It's not even real currency.
Let's
You might want to invest in your Moore's Treasury rather than Moore's.org, buy your silver and gold certificates.
Just get some actual backed
All right,
currency.
I'm sorry, because I got one more page. Well, this page and then another page. Excuse me. Da-da-da. I have brought two statements from 2018 to read verbatim. The first of them, the Declaration of the United States Department of State. So this is what the federal government said about Venezuela. The pressure campaign against Venezuela is working. The financial sanctions we have imposed have forced the government to start falling into default, both on the sovereign debt and on the debt of Petróleos de Venezuela.
No, Petróleos.
Petróleos, thank you, de Venezuela. It's oil company. And what we are seeing is a total economic collapse in Venezuela. So our policy works, our strategy works, and we will maintain it. This is from, again, the United States Department of State. And Moore's claim to be citizens of this, why? When the only people benefiting from this is the Europeans, not us.
The fraud.
Criminal. So that was the end of the quote. So the quote was: the pressure campaign against Venezuela is working. The financial sanctions we have imposed have forced the government to start falling into default, both on the sovereign debt and on the debt of the Petróleos de Venezuela, its oil company. And what we are seeing is a total economic collapse in Venezuela. Our policy works, our strategy works, and we will maintain it, unquote.
The United States said that, right?
The United States stated that. A representative from the United States said that about Venezuela and destroying its economy. Just because. Criminal confessions in violation without a doubt of the Charter of the United Nations. Second statement, in the mouth of former Ambassador William Brownfield, we must treat this as agony, a tragedy that will continue until it finally reaches an end. And if we can do something to speed it up, we must do it. But we must do it with the understanding that this is going to have an impact on millions of people who are already struggling to find food and medicine. We cannot do this and pretend that it will not have an impact. We have to make a hard decision. The desired end justifies this severe punishment. So they're talking about millions of people not having food and medicine, and that's fine with that. So if you want to be citizens of that, that's fine with it. You made that choice.
That's why everybody.
Of course not done, my bad. And what is desired end for the United States of America? Defeating the Bolivarian Revolution, maintaining its hegemony over the planet, just as it attacks Iran, Russia, China, builders of a new world, in a nefarious policy to apply the illicit doctrine of regime change. Excuse me. In view of these serious statements, Venezuela calls for an investigation into all the infamous violations of the Charter of the United Nations by the United States, which have undoubtedly constituted, as they have confessed,